Okay, we've moved fully into pandemic reading now, which when you hear this title and you hear the review, it kind of all leaks out what's all going on in the world. When I read this in 2020, I read Unseen City, and the subtitle is The Majesty of Pigeons, the Discreet Charm of Snails, and Other Wonders of the Urban Wilderness. This book was written by Nathanael Johnson, and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I wrote this about it in May of 2020. This is a pleasant little read. However, I found myself wanting both more and less. More detail about the background and science of each of the species, and less detail of Johnson's personal experiences observing the subjects. My interpretation of his purpose and this approach was to humanize his environment in a way that would make readers understand that a tantalizing science world is all around us. But it came off to me as a bit precious, indulgent, and strangely even intrusive at times. I know this is probably just a personal preference, and many people will enjoy the anecdotal pieces about his family and surroundings, but I just kept digging for more profound nature details as opposed to profound Johnson details. And that's really a key thing about reading this book. The idea of really getting in touch with natural, special things about what surrounds you in the city. I was in the middle of the pandemic, and the idea of being able to connect with Earth and the environment felt like a really powerful thing to do, and it was kind of really exciting. I think part of the reason why I wanted to read this book was to reconnect with nature. We're all being in lockdown. I know I added the book earlier than 2020, but it felt probably like the perfect book that came around at the perfect time. I think it's interesting that I say here in the review that I found myself wanting both more and less. I definitely wanted it to be more of a like Mr. Wizard's World, PBS, 3-2-1 Contact kind of book that made learning about the natural science of my environment fun and interesting. And it really is more of a diary. I'm calling it a diary. It really feels like it's the story of Nathanael Johnson and his daughter getting out there and enjoying the world around their urban wilderness. And I think that's great, but that's definitely not what I was hoping for from the book. So maybe my review was actually a little unfair. Maybe I was biased by the environment. I mean, you think about in May of 2020, what we were all going through and how much probably we wanted to connect with the world and science and get out of the house and all these things. I remember specifically thinking about the pandemic, knowing that lockdowns happened in maybe the 2nd or 3rd week of March. And I remember by the time we got to Memorial Day, I really got to a place where I couldn't stand it anymore, and I just needed to get out and get some human interaction again. That was the amount of time, I guess that's the 3 months of March, April, and May, that I could handle the lockdowns and being separate from humans. I feel that I'm a very natural extrovert and that I really need to connect with people. That's part of the reason why I'm doing these videos, is to connect with people and have conversations. And I don't really remember the pain, but I know it was intense for me to be locked away in my apartment for those 3 months. And we were still scared for another couple years here, and you're going to see in some of the other books that I've read some of that leaking out and some of those feelings leaking out into my reading choices as well. But for this one, I was hoping that it could be a guide to my local natural world and get me excited about some of the things that I was surrounded with. But I think talking about Johnson's experiences with his daughter, I think it actually kind of just highlighted the fact that we were stuck and that we were in lockdown, and I couldn't see the beauty of what was around those places. So it was an interesting book, and I call it a pleasant little read. I think my star rating here is indicative of the fact that it didn't live up to my expectations. It didn't give me all that I wanted, but that being said, I don't know if any book that I read in May of 2020 could have given me all that I wanted at that time, especially being as extroverted as I am. I will say that I kept the book around, and that my youngest actually found the book and was very interested by it too, about all the different things that you can find around you in a urban environment. So my first real big read of the pandemic was Unseen City by Nathanael Johnson, and I gave it just 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Didn't break me out of that lockdown as I so much wanted it to do.